Natalie, I'm very, very excited to talk to you about your new book, When Shadows Fall, and I know the world is going to love it as well. Before we start, could you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you very much for this interview. I'm very excited about all of it. My name is Natalie Neal. My background is, in essence, my background in education is in psychology. My work background is in management. And just my life background is, it's been pretty much consumed the last 20 years with my two daughters, which are amazing. So and other than that, I mean, what else is there about me? That's pretty, I'm not a complex person.
Well, tell us what inspired you to become a writer.
I love hearing stories. And I realized very early that words have power, words have meaning, words evoked emotions in me that I didn't even know existed, and then of course as I get older and I learn, there's words for those type of emotions, there's reasons, but even from a young age, right? So over my X amount of years of living, just seeing the influence, the impact that other people writing their stories, whether they performed them on stage, performed them in front of the camera, put them on the books, it's shaped my life and it's made me into the person I am. I would think any human would say the same thing has happened. So what inspired me? I would just say watching other people doing the amazing things they've done, tell the amazing stories, inspired me to want to try to add to that, to help us as humans figure out who we are and to be a better being.
Well, tell us what inspired you to become a writer.
So what inspired me? I would just say watching other people doing the amazing things they've done, tell the amazing stories, inspired me to want to try to add to that, to help us as humans figure out who we are.
I love that. Now, you've written a trilogy of books called the Chronicles of Olympus, and today we're excited to talk about that first book, which is When Shadows Fall. So is there anything that you can look at that inspired this particular story, or was there a specific moment that sparked the idea?
I am very much aware that the characters are fictional. Please, I'm not unhinged. I know the characters are fictional, right? But, they mean something to me. In my mind, they are real, not real people, but what happens to them, why they do what they do, that plays in my head heavily. And so what encouraged me to write the book, when I say the voices in my head, that sounds I don't mean that, but I mean there are so many ideas and they parse themselves out into these individual characters. And then I was just able to take bits and pieces from those thoughts and they just flowed together. So what's the inspiration? I don't know. Again, as cliche as it sounds, just life and why humans do what they do. I'm fascinated with human psychology. So why do humans do what they do? Why do we do what we do? I don't know. So I thought, we'll put it on paper and see what happens.
Yeah, well, let's talk about themes a little bit, because obviously right off the beginning with this story, there's a tragedy that happens, and it's something that very deeply affects the protagonist of the story, the main character, who happens to be a female. Let me just ask you this question. Do you see yourself in some ways as in this main character of the book?
You know what? I see myself, there's a little bit of me in every single character in this book. This book is, obviously there are many characters in this book, and then as my book expands into the second and third book, that cast just grows. So it's an ensemble cast. So the main character, Elliot Knight, is she me? A portion of her is. The other characters, absolutely. So, when I say these characters mean something to me, it's that there's a different aspect of me in every single character. So it's almost like, I don't know if I can, like in Harry Potter, they have Voldemort has the Horcrux. He splits himself up into all these different parts and puts them in other things. And, I guess my characters are my Horcrux. As silly as that sounds, I guess. So, no, there's a little bit of me in every single character. Villains, heroes, all the way around. There's a little bit of me.
I love that. Let's, if we can, just talk for a minute about the process of writing this book. Not necessarily how long it took, but when you're formulating an idea for people who are watching this that like to hear how writers work, how they tick, what did that process look like for you? Was it, well, I won't even suggest it. Let me just ask you the question. What does that process look like?
It just looks like, you know what, it's easier, I think, when I started looking into, how do other authors write, and there were all these different ways that authors write, and I realized that for me, the story it comes in place. It just flows. I don't write the ending and then go back and try to fill in the beginning and then the middle evolves. I don't do that. I literally from page one, and the story just flows.
Yeah, I would think that linear approach, like what you're talking about, is actually probably more difficult. But I would imagine that you had to have a sense of the grand story from beginning to end before you can just start in chapter one and write linear. Do you feel like you had most of the story, or did it develop as you went along?
It developed as I went along, as I don't even know what the word for that would be, but it developed as I went along. And again, the characters, I got to know the characters even more as I wrote. The characters introduced themselves even more to me. And so again, with psychology being a huge love of mine, then I would write something and I would think, what will happen if this part happens from this character? What's the fallout? And then when that happens, what will be the fallout from these other characters and how will they interpret it? And so I can't say that I started writing at page one and I knew at the end of that book that A, B, and C was going to happen. I can't say that. So it had a starting point, and at the end of the first book, it had an ending point. And then, but I did know that I wanted the story to continue. So I didn't want a 900-page book, right? So I did know I needed to split it up.
Let's take a minute and let's talk a little bit about the story. And of course, we don't want to give away all the spoilers, but tell me a little bit, or tell the person watching this a little bit about the main character, Elliot, and who she is, and drop us into this story a little bit as it unfolds. Let's just talk a little bit about the story.
Yeah, so Elliot is a very dedicated person into what's right and wrong. She is. That's her core, her backbone is, you do what's right even if it's hard. And she is not one to, I guess, just be friends with multitudes of people. Her friendships are pointed. If she's going to have a friendship with you, it's going to actually mean something. It's not going to be flippant. It's not going to be just off the cuff. She dedicates her time and her emotion into people that's important to her. She is very loyal, very much so, and having a friend, having someone who she can talk to and relate to and believe in is important to her.
That's great. Let's take a minute and let's talk a little bit about the story. And of course, we don't want to give away all the spoilers, but tell me a little bit, or tell the person watching this a little bit about the main character, Elliot, and who she is, and drop us into this story a little bit as it unfolds. Let's just talk a little bit about the story.
The main premise, I guess, of the book is that Elliot is in the spot she's in because her best friend, her soulmate, of course, not to give away everything, but it's obvious the first few pages what happens, right? So, and even in the trailer, you realize that devastation happens to this friend, and so it does crush her. She doesn't know, she's lost her footing. She doesn't know how to put things back in place. And so just by happenstance, life happens and her instincts kick in because she is a good person. And she does something that she realizes reminds her of who she is. During this whole time, she had forgotten who she was because she was so obsessed with guilt, so obsessed with sadness, with loss. And then, as I said, just when this one incident happens, it rubber band her back into, oh wait, this is who I am. This is what I do. And so she just, from there, she realizes that to make herself whole again, not that she'll ever be whole, she doesn't feel like she ever will be whole, but she does feel like that to help her get on, she needs to help others, so they don't have an experience near as crushing as hers has been. So she'll always have that hole. Samantha, her friend, will always not be able to fill that hole now because Samantha's gone. But she's looking for anything that she can to make that hole not as big.
I love it. So part of this story takes place in a fictional metro area entitled Olympus, which is very interesting because as you read the book, you see that there's streets and companies and buildings, things that are named along the line of Greek gods and things that have to do with Greek culture. Talk a little bit about how that became part of the story.
You know what? The Greek mythology has always just fascinated me. Always has. The Greek gods, I mean, they were just, larger than life, obviously, right? And I mean, they were the original superheroes, and they're, they were villains, they were heroes, they were sad stories. They had terrible baggage and drama and trauma, and then they just bled over into all the humans that they dealt with, and so it was just a hot mess of humanity. And and so I thought, when I was writing my book, that was just a given. I mean, that wasn't even a, hey, why don't we make this, this city into, why don't we gear it towards Greek mythology? That was just a given. It was just it makes sense. I think ancient Greece from what little bit I know, was that the buildings were beautiful, right? The literature, beautiful, right? Again, the heroes, the villains, larger than life. So all of it, it's amazing. Aristotle, he wrote about the virtues of friendship, and my whole book is about friendship and the love of friendship. And I'm thinking, well, if it was good enough for Aristotle, it has to mean something, right? So I can't be that far off, and yeah. So yeah.
So weaved throughout the story, there are some really cool things that are happening, some high-tech tools and different things like that. And I'm curious if some of that came from you being a James Bond fan, or loving that idea of the high-tech tools, and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, as humans, we are very, very limited in a lot of things physically that we can do, right? And so, but when I read, when I watch stories, I've grown up, you said James Bond. Yes, he was superhuman, just because of all of his tech and his gadgets. That was awesome. Batman floats around, and he has Alfred, and suddenly he's a superhero that can, defy gravity basically, and bullets bounce off of him, and I'm all, okay, that's pretty awesome, So I didn't want my character to be, an alien, where they have these superpowers where they are bulletproof because they come from a different planet. That wasn't what this particular, nothing wrong with that. I love, Supergirl, one of my favorites, right? But, but I wanted my characters, all my characters, to be human. Absolutely. But how do I make them even more human, where they can be a hero that will capture the attention? If someone did something terrible to me as a human, it would probably just, I would be done being, there's not, I don't have a special suit or anything, but with my characters, right, for their longevity, they have to have some tech that can help them just progress and grow and just be absolutely awesome, which is what I wanted. So awesome, regular humans that by science, I love science. Hey, I taught physics for a hot second in a different life, right? I love science. And so, I thought, why not marry that in, the best of science with the best of humanity, and just see what comes out in the end.
I like that because it's anchored in reality. It's like what you said. It's not based upon some magical thing that happened in space or something. It's all anchored in reality.
No, yeah, yes, absolutely. It wasn't some sort of, terrible radiation spill or anything. It was just, I don't know. These people are good. These people not so much, right? And with the tech, what do these two different groups of people, how do they use that tech? What does it do to just the overall population of Olympus, which is, wow, just fodder for the playground of chaos.
Now, a lot of the story does take place in the city of Olympus, but also Elliot is traveling all over the globe, really. So talk about the travel part. Is travel something that's a passion of yours? Is that, or talk a little bit about that aspect?
Yes, if I could, I always say what I'm going to do in my next life, right? But man, if I could just travel and write, if I could do those two things, that would be amazing. I would love to travel all over the world. I think I was born maybe a little too late. I think perhaps I could have been a pirate, right? And just hit the high seas and just go, adventure and just new stuff, new people, new foods, new experience, everything. New fears, new stories. I mean, all of that is just fascinating to me. And no, I unfortunately, I have not unfortunately, fortunately, I have traveled. Unfortunately, I have not traveled near enough. So in my book, I can live vicariously through my characters, and thankfully, I don't need a passport to write down where my people go. Even though I do have a passport personally, but I think it's expired now, so I need to do something about that. But yes, that's it. I love travel. I love new places.
I love that. Well, I know everybody is going to really enjoy this book. Before we end, as a writer, let me ask you a question. What would you say to other people out there who love fiction as much as you do and have a desire to write, but they haven't done it yet? What would your message be to them, to that aspiring writer who wants to be able to write like what you've done?
Oh man, my message is just do it. Go big or go home. Just do it. It just takes just sitting down and starting. Right? If you have the thought in your head, if it's always kind of played in your subconscious, and you're thinking, gosh, what, this story is interesting, or I would like to parse more into this idea, just do it. Finding the time to do it, good luck. I wish I had an answer for that. It took me a while to write this first book, not because, again, and let me say this to any aspiring artist or author, not because the story wasn't there. I mean, the story has always been there. It always has. It's just life happens. And, I would write a couple of pages and then 8 months would go by and I wouldn't even touch my book. And then I would get this moment and it was like, oh, I have some time. Let's go back and, and then, but I would have to reread what I wrote, to make sure that it's all congruent, and then I would start again. It was like reinventing the wheel every time I sit down to write. But once I finished my first book, I definitely have to say my other two books, man, those just knocked out quick, but again, my life had changed by that time. So I had a little bit more time, I guess, or maybe I just took more time. So yes, as an aspiring author, you know what? Take time, just write it down a little bit every now and then, and let the thoughts flow. You can always go back and edit, or you can have a fantastic publisher that can help you out along the way.
I love that. The Greeks talked about the muse, which is very interesting. I've read books on the muse, and you talked a moment ago about just starting, and just if you'll sit down and you'll start to do the work, that providence comes to you, help comes to you, that muse comes to you. Do you feel like you experienced the muse when you were writing this book?
Absolutely. There's 9 different muses, right? And so, and they are as varied as the cast in my book. It's just an ensemble of just, no one can do it alone, right? And you got to take a little bit of everything and put it together. But yes, absolutely. When I say that the story just came, that the characters just were there, are there, exist. Absolutely. I do believe that there's other entities out there, not to get all weird into whatever, but there's other things that inspire us or enable us or allow us to do what we do. And whatever you want to call it, whether it's a muse, which I like that, I absolutely believe that, or whether it's just, I don't know, someone else who inspired you, whatever it is. But yeah, muses have always fascinated me. And my love with the muses came, 100 years ago, one of my first musicals that I loved, the movie was Xanadu. Oh my gosh, I loved Xanadu, right? That was like my absolute favorite. And not because of the roller skating, Lord help me, I couldn't roller skate to save my life, but because of the premise behind it. The muses, they come to earth, they help humans. It was just a beautiful story. It was a musical. I love musicals. That's where my love of musicals started. And honestly, if I want to psychoanalyze myself, where did Olympus come from? I could probably trace it all the way back to when I was just a kid and watched that movie and fell in love with just learning about Greek mythology and what it means. And Olivia Newton-John was amazing. She was one of my first, idols that I loved. And so, she was outstanding. And so I thought, wow, whatever part she took in that, I loved it. And so honestly, in the back of my head, that was always probably there, now that you say that. And that's probably where it came from, all of this. Yes. Yep.
I love that. That's great. All right, so before we go, we have the 3 books, When Shadows Fall. Tell us about the other 2 just briefly. What are their titles?
Right. So the other 2, and this is just a trilogy, although, man, I could very much expand this into many more books than just 3. But Into the Dark is the second book, and The War for Olympus is the third book in this trilogy. In no way does it put a cap on the story, but at some time you got to stop, I guess, at least to get it out and published. And for anyone listening to this interview, I really hope you like the book, because that will allow me to get my other 2 books out. And then I really hope you like those 2 books, because there are so many other stories, at least for this particular theme, that I would love to get into. And gosh, the voices in my head, they're just going crazy. So you've got to read my book, please. You got to tell me what you think. You got to settle these voices in my head, because they're all screaming to get their points, and to get their limelight. So I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, I hope everyone enjoys it. Thank you.
Yes, it's the first book, When Shadows Fall, the first book in the Chronicles of Olympus, from author N.C. Neal. Natalie, thank you for being with us today and sharing a little bit. We're all very excited about this book coming out and those that are to follow.
Yeah, hey, thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for everyone who took time to even watch this video. Thank you so much.